Welcome to the Shibe for Change podcast. Because good people deserve better.
I was going to ask you too, what would be an example of something you and I have to figure out or plan on? Like, say you and I are elected and we're in the office and there's something brought our way. Do you want to mock debate on what we should do?
Oh, it's a fact that okay. Something perhaps to talk about as far as potential conflict within the council is what happens if there's a 4-1 vote and there is the one person is just convinced that they were in the right.
Yeah.
And let's suggest that person is you.
Okay.
And let's say it's not an environmental thing.
Okay.
Okay. Because I think while both of us believe strongly in clean water and clean air.
Yeah.
Let's say there's a matter of, hey, there is this program that there's an opportunity for money, but the city has to kick in $1 million. We'll get $1 million from the feds. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's say that might be, hey, Mike, I really want to do this. I don't think we have $1 million to spare, and that's my response. And then it's a 4-1 vote.
Yeah.
Let's say it's that. And so let's say that it would be so unusual for me to be on the winning side of a 4-1 vote. The first thing I would probably say is, oh, okay, wait a minute. But you know what? I would remember being the one.
Yeah.
I would absolutely remember being on the side that people couldn't see. And so before even taking the vote, I would definitely be very careful to ask, is there something that you're seeing that I'm not necessarily seeing in this?
Right. You see, I love this scenario and the thought process behind this because I feel, and this is kind of my fear, to be honest with you, is that maybe I get voted in and you don't.
That's fine.
And Matt doesn't. And now I have to work with people who don't actually listen. But I trust you guys. And I know that you're going to listen to me. And if at the end of the day, we as a team decide that this isn't in the best interest for Marseilles, then I need to just accept that. You know, I can try to explain to you exactly why I think it would be good. But I feel that if I'm really, if the scenario is I'm very excited about this environmental impact grant or whatever, and we're going to spend this money on it, another idea is, well, let's bring it to the community. You know, if we're divided, let's bring it to the community and see what they want and consider that.
All day.
Yeah.
All day.
Let them be the tiebreakers.
Yeah. Well,
even though it's not a tie.
Well, sure. Well, and a referendum will not always be feasible. But to my thinking, whenever the city of Marseilles is going to spend $1 million or more, it should automatically go to a referendum.
Yes.
It should always be to the people.
Yeah.
Always, always, always. Even if it's just an advisory referendum, the people had a chance to weigh in on a yes or no basis. That was something that would have, I think, changed the building purchase in a very real way. Because even if I lost at that point, the people were behind it. I don't think the people were behind it, but I had no way to prove that. As far my guess is, because we don't have what's Zogby or Reuters, the folks that do the polling. People don't poll Marseilles.
Yeah.
So the Chicago Tribune wasn't coming down to Marseilles and saying, do you approve or disapprove of the building purchase? And sadly, then the loudest voices tend to be the ones that are heard, whether they speak for the majority or not. Whereas a referendum, everyone's vote counts the same, whether you're bombastic or whether you're reserved, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. In a referendum, people really can stand up and be counted. And then if at that point somehow I was wrong, then there would have been a mechanism to show me that I was wrong.
Yeah.
And so something like that, I mean, if it's $1 million or more, to me the vote would be, do we put this on a referendum to go forward?
Right.
And then if the answer is no, well then it's dead. But if the answer is yes, then we find out what the people think.
Well, there's also so much more in that, like if we're talking about, what are we talking about? Taking down a building that's full of asbestos? Well, now we're talking about that is a very particular thing, may cost more than $2 million, because I've been the person online that was angry about the asbestos thing, and I had that open conversation with many citizens like myself, and people educated me and said, well, it's not really bothering anything by these buildings sitting there. Well, I beg to disagree, because as it's cracking and crumbling or animals are going in and out, or, you know, things are settling in there and there's broken windows, it is still going in the air. Asbestos is still going in the air. But then I looked into, like, if we were to take it down, that's a hazard in itself. So how do you even do that? And then I realized, oh, well, it's a much bigger thing. Maybe it's not great right now, but it's, and this is, you know, I don't know a ton about it, but it is better this way and less harm than maybe taking it down. I don't know if they put up a big old tent before they take it down or how they do that, but, you know, yeah, it'd be nice to take it down. And there was a resident that lives near there that said that she's watched the fireplace chimney, that's it, the chimney crumbling over the years, so she knows that it's deteriorating, and at one point it may fall and release asbestos into the air in a big way. But I think it's, again, systems level thinking. It's almost got to be like a chess game. I need to be able to think 10 steps ahead before I make a decision, and I have to consider what pawns are going to be sacrificed, and, you know, we have to be able to prioritize. And that's why I love that, you know, hopefully we're going to be voted in as a diverse team where we all can educate each other and learn from each other. You know, personally, on a personal level, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, very much so. And, you know, I don't want to say at the end of the day, it's kind of cliche, but ultimately what becomes of Nabisco is going to be a matter of what's the least bad option.
Yeah.
Now, it may well be that you could build effectively boxes within the walls such that you could still use the building for something. There's a possibility you could do that. Not only would there be, and I'm throwing out, like, the build out could be 10, 20, $30 million. You know, this is not, people think the cost is in the buying the building. The cost ain't in the buying of the building. It's what you do. It's what you do with it. And then obviously the impact on whatever it is that you're going to disturb or unsettle in it. But even, and it's as you say, there's real costs in taking it down. There's also an environmental impact in taking it down. And then beyond that, where do you send the stuff to? So now you have all of the leavings of a very large building. Not just any place is going to be able to take that.
Yeah.
And that's actually an issue we have with Washington School also.
That's what I was referring to.
And so you have the, so in addressing Nabisco and Washington School, you know, one big thing to me is I don't believe the city's been proactive in taking possession of those spaces. You know, when I looked up how many ordinance violations were written for the Nabisco building, not a whole lot, you know. So, and then that kind of again hammers the point home. How come you're going after grandma for her weeds that are 7 inches, not 6, but you have a very large brownfield? What have you actually taken to encourage the owners to do something with it, even if it sell at a lower price than they wish they could have?
Yeah.
You know, because there was an opportunity for the sale of the building, and could they have sold it had they dropped the price? Well, there was no incentive from the city. You know, I don't recall how much they're paying in property taxes, but it's not a lot.
Yeah.
You know, so without an incentive to do something with the building, what do you think's going to happen to the building? They're probably going to sit on it.
Yeah.
You know, but could you encapsulate? Could you keep the asbestos out of an encapsulated structure that could perhaps be veterans housing, senior housing, something like that? I'd really like to look into that, and I think there's a world in which that's possible.
Yeah.
But again, I could be wrong. I'm not in construction, you know, and so I think that's where the interplay can go in. Hey, let's have a look at this.
Yeah.
Somebody, not us, somebody who gets paid to deal with brownfields, because there will be other examples of it.
Yeah.
You know, when I went to college about an hour outside of Akron, and there was a complex there called Quaker Square. It used to be like a Quaker Oats factory. And they then turned it into restaurants and hotels, and it was a thriving neighborhood. Sadly past, actually now they do okay. The University of Akron's taken up a bunch of it, but they were able to do something with it. So we would have a model, this worked there. But of course, you can't necessarily translate. We're a much smaller community. We have fewer resources, less population. We have to realize that we have inherent limitations also. But and you know, some people argued that I shouldn't give people false hope when I ask people, what would you like to see there? But you know what? What's the harm in asking? What would you actually like? And And it kind of goes to the point of don't do something to someone until you've asked them what they think of it.
Right.
So if the prevailing sense in the city of Marseilles is, I don't want to put a lot of public resources into this building if it's not an immediate threat, that's my bias. It's sad, because it really is. When I took office, this was my ego speaking. I would love to do something with that building. It's such a beautiful building. Wouldn't it be great if we did something? However, there is an integrity issue of how much other people's money do we want to spend on a project that might not benefit them.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole other thing. These are privately held buildings.
Yeah, what would be ideal is if we could kind of it feels as though Illini is really, like, people are sleeping on Illini. You know what I mean? Like, it's a taste of Starved Rock, but you don't have to be overcrowded. And it's a beautiful place, and I feel like there's so much more we could do there, especially with the businesses that we've seen that have tried and failed. And if we had more attraction to it, like, that's what you put on the sign. And then to have a hotel where the Nabisco is, or out here, I feel like it'd be a nice little vacation. You could bring in more that way. People who are staying here in the hotel and, deciding just to hike the canal or whatever. Also, when I was a CNA for like 12 years on and off in nursing homes, and I really loved working with dementia patients. And there was a saying in one of the nursing homes that I worked at that said, we work in their home, they don't live at our work. And I feel like that's kind of what this needs to be. Like, this isn't our job, this isn't our town, this isn't our place. We happen to be living in it as well. So, there's something in it for us, that if this town is thriving, then so might we. But just having the mentality of, like, I just don't see what's going on right now being that way. It's like we are their job.
Yes, very much. We are the the burden.
Yes.
Yeah. Here. And and I think one thing that, just in speaking, you Matt and I are very comfortable, like, socially, and then Chad and his wife actually led the youth group that my daughters were in a number of years ago. So I've known him for forever also. But one thing I'd love to see from us is just a happier group of people.
Yeah.
That poke fun at ourselves.
Yes.
Like I used ChatGPT for this, but I had little devil horns put on me with, it's like, if you want to call me, I think it's good to poke fun at ourselves. It's good to realize that we're going to make mistakes. It's good to realize that we're always progressing upwards.
Yeah.
The fact is, if anybody looks into us closely enough, we're going to find that we flubbed a couple of putts, and good, because we're fallen people. We are sinners. Christianity 101. Not a very preachy guy. I except when I'm preaching, and I'm allowed. But you know what? The fact of the matter, my mindset is that we're a fallen people.
Yeah.
And therefore, grace is in order. Everyone you meet has blown it. And that kind of charity and that kind of humility and some joy that goes with that.
Yeah.
I would love to see some laughter at city council meetings.
That's, what? I'm not religious, but I would say that I am certainly Christian, and the idea of grace, is that not the whole point of the Bible? In my opinion, it's grace. And if you can apply that to yourself, that's when it really counts. Like, grace is the only reason why I'm sitting here right now, to be able to say, I'm just like an average person who, I got my GED, and then it's taken me 13 years to get a master's degree, because I've gotten up and I've fallen, but I don't give up. And I've given myself that grace where, I may not be perfect, and I'm not promising anyone that I'm going to be perfect, but I promise you that if you point it out to me and say, you're not perfect, here's your issue, I am honestly so grateful, because we have self-awareness, yes, but we rely on the perception of others sometimes to see things that we can't in ourselves. Just like, you admitted
Yes.
with the hero complex.
Absolutely.
And if anyone picked it up, that was me that said that. And I really, that says a lot, that I really hope that we get to work together and make each other better people and make Marseilles better.
Well, I'm going to be a little arrogant and say I don't see how we can lose. I simply think we have a better vision than the alternatives are providing.
It's authentic.
Absolutely. If, however, the people choose elsewise, God bless them. We put it on the table. We did our part.
Yeah.
And then no one will say, well, why didn't you do something about it? Well, we did.
We tried, yeah.
I think it's a great place to stop. But you know what though? If I can wager in church, I think the forgiving others, forgiving ourselves, seeing the best in others,
Yeah.
and encouraging excellence rather than punishing their indiscretions, that's a winning formula.
Well, and that's, I think that's my favorite thing, and maybe why I got so obsessed with psychology. And you don't have to record this or put this, or you can. Originally psychology was something that was keeping me safe, because I saw everyone as the bad guy, and I needed to be able to read them and know everything about them so that I could be safe. But eventually I started to understand humans, and that wherever they're at, that's just where they're at. I kind of see people as a deck of cards, and those cards are removed and put back in, and new ones are slid into the deck all day long, and to me, people are never just a solid deck. There's all these different characteristics and everything, and it's like, I think that's what makes me a better listener. That's what, if you're mad, and I would love to be that safe space for you, where you can be in a government meeting and you're clearly angry, and because it's not obvious when you get upset. But for me to be able to say, hey, I see why you're upset, that's what you deserved. And I just hope that you know that's what you deserved. It's okay to be frustrated and passionate. You just need people you can trust to be that way with. And you were vulnerable, just with the wrong people. And so I hope that we can put the right people in, and because you're such a great leader, and I really hope that you are elected as mayor. I really do. Well,
and Kayla, I look forward to you serving on the council, and thank you so much. And shout out to shiveforchange.com. Come see my website. Kayla, please do support Kayla for commissioner. I cannot say enough for her. And if I can tell you how both you and Matt in particular have served me incredibly well. After a meeting, my mind is going 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It is impossible for me. I have found it very difficult to tone down. Mm-hmm. So after a meeting, Matt and I have kind of a little debrief, and after the last one, Chad joined me. Mm-hmm. And I had my 0.0. I was being a good boy. I had my non-alcoholic Heineken, but we go to Snug Harbor, and we talk about how it went. And sometimes I hear, Mike, you did really well. And other times, Mike, you kind of lost it. Mike, were
you made a fool out of yourself.
Were you being that loud? Was that really helpful?
Yeah.
And I cherish both of those things. Someone else that is going to be on one of these has been such a blessing to me, both as an encourager but also as a challenger.
Yeah.
And I think that when we seek out people to hold us accountable, but also to lift us up when we need it, that's what makes a person great, and that's what can make Marseilles great.
Yeah, I agree.
And so thank you for being that person already for me. You've already been that person for me. But to also have you in a position of authority next to me, working alongside me.
Yeah.
And by the way, we made a team announcement. We're a team.
Yeah.
And they're no more authoritarian nothing. We're going to collaborate, and we're going to do the best that we can. And when we flub a putt, we're going to say, you know what, I kind of blew that one.
Yeah.
But you know what, I would much rather. I heard this saying, and it really struck with me. If you don't strike out, you're not taking big enough swings.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is we're taking a big swing.
We are.
And
yeah.
I think that if I am convinced that we are doing what we should be doing. And
I agree.
Only one way to find out.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks again, Kayla.
Vote for Pedro.